cannot determine the cause of the demonic invasion until the Rezop satellite is brought back online.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Samuel Hayden. I'm the head of this facility. I think we can work together and resolve this problem in a way that benefits us both.
Across multiple games and over nearly 3 decades, Doom as a franchise has kept changing and changing back, and so too have various aspects of its story, setting, characters, and more. But some things have been constant, and these are things that, regardless of which Doom era you look at, you will find have made a mark with their strong and constant presence. One of these things is the Union Aerospace Corporation, or the UAC. Whether it's classic Doom games like Doom 1, 2, or 64 that you're looking at, or the much more horror-focused Doom 3, or the reboot of the franchise that brought it back to its roots in 2016, or hell, even the Doom RPGs, the UAC has been a constant presence in the series that has, to varying degrees, had roles to play in its stories and premises. That was perhaps truer in Doom 2016 than it was in any other game. And much like it did with so many other things, the reboot also lent significantly more backstory, lore, and narrative material to the UAC than we'd ever seen in a mainline Doom game, or maybe even in all of them combined. And clearly, the corporation is going to continue having a part to play in the imminently releasing Doom Eternal as well. And so, as we've been doing with various other bits of Doom's lore, here we'll be taking a look at the UAC and going over its most important pieces of info related to the mega corporation. But perhaps it's best to start at the beginning. If you've never played Doom before, or played it but never paid much attention to its story, which is totally understandable given how much of a backseat the story usually takes in this series, you might be asking the question, what the hell even is the UAC? Across its multiple incarnations, one thing has remained consistent for the UAC over the years, is the fact that it's a multi-planetary megacorporation. It has its headquarters on Mars, but also has various other bases scattered all over, from Earth, the Moon, Mars's moons Phobos and Deimos, orbital stations, deep space stations, and more. How did they get to this point, though? Well, the origins of the UAC's massive success can be traced back to the year 2095, as Doom 2016 tells us. That year is an important one in the history of the company, because that was when they discovered Argent Energy and the Fracture on Mars. Without throwing a bunch of proper nouns at you, here's the gist of what that actually means. The UAC discovered raw, unrefined energy leaking from a fracture, with the source of that energy being the realm of Hell itself. Being fully aware of the origins of this energy and the implications of trying to work with it, the UAC nonetheless decided to start processing and harnessing Argent plasma. More than anything else, other than maybe the prospect of massive monetary gains, this was driven by the fact that at this time, humanity was facing a troubling energy crisis. The UAC saw Argent energy as a perfect new renewable energy source, and for the good of mankind, they started processing and harnessing this energy. They also decided to keep the true nature of the energy source a secret from the public, because they knew that the truth might prove to be troublesome and controversial, and might throw a wrench into the intentions of using that energy. Though in spite of that, there was no shortage of suspicions and rumors among people outside of the corporation. All of this happened under the leadership of their chairman, a brilliant man named Samuel Hayden, who was responsible for the corporation's greatest achievements. Once Argent Energy and the Fracture were discovered, under Hayden's leadership, the UAC built the Argent Tower on Mars, which was designed to be the tool that they would use to harness Argent energy from the Fracture and beam it to the Global Energy Distribution Matrix, or GEDM, on Earth. Hayden also built the fully autonomous AI known as Vega, which was responsible for overseeing and operating the entire UAC base on Mars. Though Hayden was removed from his position as the chairman of the corporation following his cybernetic operation and demoted to being the head of the Mars base, that was more of a public-facing move than really anything else, and most still knew that he was the true figure of leadership and authority within the company. The UAC were, like a good little mega corporation, also involved in some shadier activities, and yes, shadier even than literally using energy leaking out from Hell as, well, fuel. They led several manned incursions into Hell, And while most of these were failures that resulted in a great loss of life at the hands of demons, many did turn up artifacts that would prove to be useful, including Korax tablets, the Praetor suit, and even the sarcophagus within which the legendary Doomslayer lay in his long slumber. Some research divisions of the UAC were also working on more sinister things, which entailed capturing demons or samples from hell and experimenting on those to turn them into bioweapons for the company. The likes of the Cyber Mancubus and the Revenant were direct products of these experiments. The UAC were even responsible for the Cyber Demon Reanimation Project, which saw them applying Argent energy to the petrified remains of the Balhar Demon, which the UAC had acquired from a manned expedition into the Titan's realm, and then enhancing it even further with cybernetic components. The result was the terrifying and bullish, literally, Cyber Demon. Knowing full well the risks and dangers that were so closely associated with hell and demonic forces inherently posed, the UAC also took precautionary measures, should things ever go south. For example, there was the Elite Guard, which was, as its name suggests, composed of elite soldiers that were tasked with acting as the most important line of defense for the UAC base against any and all threats. These soldiers were cybernetically enhanced, but due to these enhancements, the UAC also built in kill switches into the Guard to ensure that they didn't ever go rogue either. Only a select few within the UAC, including Samuel Hayden and his protege Olivia Pierce, who was the head of the Lazarus Project, knew of these kill switches. Speaking of Olivia Pierce and things going south, after years of exposure to Hell's corrupting influence and her own alignments, which also proved to be a huge factor, Olivia became obsessed with Hell. Curiously enough, Hayden and board members of the UAC were all aware of this cult and Olivia's activities, but they chose to ignore it because they figured that as long as all of this didn't impact the UAC and its primary activities, they didn't really care too much about it. That proved to be a costly mistake, to no one's surprise. This cult, more specifically Olivia herself, was responsible for unleashing a Lazarus wave on Mars, which kicked off a full-blown invasion of the UAC base by demons from Hell after a portal from the realm opened up. The immediate consequence of this was that most UAC employees on Mars were either killed outright or possessed by demonic forces. Meanwhile, Olivia also activated the kill switch protocol in the Elite Guard to get them out of the way immediately. Hayden was then forced to reawaken the Doomslayer, and the two eventually got to work to put a stop to Olivia's activities. Though we've covered the events that followed extensively over multiple features in the last few weeks, here's the quick gist of the most important events. The Doomslayer destroyed the Argent Tower. He then had to destroy Vega's core to create a portal into Hell, but did create a backup of the AI before doing so, unbeknownst to anyone else. After heading into Hell, he acquired the Crucible and killed Olivia. Finally, Hayden, seeing that his final goals did not align with those of the Slayer, stole the Crucible from the Slayer and using a tether he had forcefully installed into the Marine suit, teleported him away to an unknown location. In the months that have passed between Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, things seem to have gone from bad to worse for the Union Aerospace Corporation. Though there's much we don't know yet, and will not know for a couple more days, it seems like Hayden is for some reason out of the picture, temporarily at least if nothing else. Meanwhile, even with Olivia no longer being a factor, the demonic cult within the UAC has grown, to the extent that it swallowed up pretty much the entire corporation and its employees, though a few within its ranks still remain opposed to Hell. Of course, the multiplanetary corporation will continue to play a huge role in the series' story. We just don't know the full extent of how it will do so yet. At least we don't have to wait too long to find out. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.